everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Diane Hall from Career Services, and I'm joined by my colleague Marta, and we are here as a part of the PhD Job Search Prep Camp to talk a little bit about making the leap from PhD to postdoc. And this program is being recorded and will be available on YouTube. And at the end of this program, I will share with you some information about the programs that we have coming up next week and how you can register for them. So I'm going to turn it over to Marta to get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marta Bartholomew. I am the Director of Postdoctoral Affairs in the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs. And I am here to talk a little bit about the search for a postdoc and to find out, to share some information on how you can evaluate whether that's the right fit for you. So we'll just get started.
And again, I'm Diane Hall from Career Services, and we work on the team that works with graduate students and postdocs. If you would like to introduce yourself in the chat and tell us what department you're from, it's always fun to see where people are coming from. And if you have questions as we go along, feel free to add them in the chat, and we'll hopefully have a few minutes at the end for questions as well. Take it away, Marta.
Thanks. So today we're going to cover a variety of topics to help you evaluate whether pursuing a postdoc is really the right choice for you and how to find the right postdoc opportunities. As you'll learn, the postdoc search is not always your typical job search. So that's why myself and Diane are here to help you better understand this process. So we'll just start with the fundamentals. If you're here today, you're most likely nearing the end of your graduate studies and thinking about a postdoc as a next step if you want to pursue a career in research. So what is a postdoc? Typically, it is a temporary position meant to prepare you for long-term roles in academia, industry, or government. Postdoctoral training can be a bridge to independence that allows for greater skill development and deeper scholarship. It gives a recent PhD the opportunity to make more progress on their research goals and sometimes to develop highly specialized skills necessary for the research they want to accomplish. In a postdoc, you're still in training mode, and a postdoctoral position is really thought of as a stepping stone to the next stage in your research career. So how do you decide if a postdoc is really the right step for you next? So you should start by defining your career goals. Just start at the beginning. What do you want long-term? Where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5, 10 years? And is a postdoc the right choice to help you get there? So hopefully the material we cover is going to help you answer that question. You want to start with the end in mind. I should say, like in some fields, like biomedical research, there is an expectation you'll complete a postdoc. Other disciplines not as high of an expectation. So whether you want to be in academia or industry or work in nonprofits, governments, if it's research focused, knowing your goals helps you decide if a postdoc will put you on the right path. A postdoc includes a chance at more dedicated time to publish, more teaching experience, and to build your skills and network. So knowing your goals will also help shape the kind of postdoc opportunity you want to pursue. So why is a postdoc a great opportunity? There's a lot of advantages to doing a postdoc. As I said, it's a training opportunity with room to grow and explore. It's more focused time for research. You're past the dissertation, and if you think you need it, you can have more dedicated time to make progress on your research. If you can find a postdoc with a great faculty mentor, it's more one-on-one time with mentorship from a senior scholar. That's important and especially valuable if you are looking to pursue a tenure track position. In a postdoc, you can spend time presenting, networking, and raising your visibility. This will all give you a greater competitive edge when you're ready to apply for faculty or industry positions. And another advantage to doing a postdoc is that postdocs typically have greater autonomy over their research agenda than they did when they were grad students. So you can pivot a bit, you can try out different trajectories, postgraduate education. You know, you also have greater skills, knowledge, confidence at this point in your training, and you can apply all of this gained experience during a postdoc position. If you're thinking about a postdoc, you might also still be thinking about whether you want to do that or maybe go to the industry track. So some of the key differences, right? And I've mentioned this a couple times already, is that a postdoc is really still, you're still training, right? So there's room to grow and explore, there's room to learn, there's room to fail, right? The expectations for a postdoc are different because there's still an emphasis on the learning and training. This means less formal evaluation. PIs want to see progress in your development and not meeting necessarily hard metrics that may be part of the expectation in private industry. There's also postdocs usually have time dedicated to professional development. So that means like participating in workshops and grant writing, or learning how to present, or learning how to mentor students. You should have time to focus on publishing, dedicated time to write, revise. And a postdoc is not, an endpoint, it's a stepping stone. Whereas private industry, the positions there are not structured to necessarily set you up for the next step, right? Or for career growth. And finally, postdocs are not one size fits all. You can tailor a postdoc position to your individual needs, and you don't have that kind of flexibility necessarily in industry. Now that I've made the case that postdocs are an amazing opportunity, which they are, there are some downsides, because there's always downsides. And I just want to talk about some of those as well. Postdocs are considered trainees, and they work in higher ed. Typically, the salary that you'll be receiving is going to be lower and less competitive than a private industry position. It can also really vary based on the institution. So when you are looking at postdoc positions, you want to try to get some like concrete information about how they structure their compensation. Many postdocs are one-year appointments at a time. This is pretty standard at institutions. So there's no guarantee of renewal. So if you're envisioning like a 3-year or a 5-year postdoc for the kind of research you want to accomplish, it's just important to note there's no guarantee you can stay in the same postdoc position for like that period of time. Most postdocs are dependent on their PI's funding or their faculty mentors funding, especially now. That's important to consider due to funding uncertainty with the federal government. So having an upfront conversation with a PI or faculty mentor is helpful. And then related to that is that a lot of people do postdocs to pursue a tenure track position. And as we know that those positions are becoming fewer and farther between, especially right now at this point in time. And then finally, one of the things that is important to note is due to the lower salary, due to the temporary nature of the position, is that it does delay sometimes financial stability. And that might mean you would delay major life decisions. You don't have to, but some postdocs really delay, family planning or owning a home, saving money. So it really helps for you to assess where you're at in your life stage and your personal goals to make sure you're just like not completely sacrificing one for the other. I do want to take a moment to point out that there are postdocs available in almost every discipline. However, in the humanities, there are much fewer opportunities, and they're highly competitive. Also, when you apply for a postdoc in the humanities, it's structured more like a faculty search. So there's a deadline at a particular time in the year. And the emphasis is usually on, wanting to complete a book or complete like a very specific project. So you would upfront propose that and receive a fellowship more typically through like a nonprofit or a foundation. In the sciences, there's many, it's much more common. PIs with federal funding, federal grants, research labs, they typically fund postdocs, and the positions are available all year round. There's not like a typical application cycle for that. So yeah, and I want to take a moment just to go back to what I said earlier is something to think about before you decide, I definitely want to pursue a postdoc, is just thinking about your career values, thinking about your personal values. There's always going to be a trade-off, and there's always going to be a compromise, but the key is just to, find a blend of the right elements that feels right to you. So if you've decided that you do want to look into postdoc opportunities, there's multiple ways to go about it. I'll say the most common way still is that you need to just directly connect with a faculty that you are interested in working with. So a PI or faculty mentor, you just either have someone you know make a connection between the two of you, or you do the cold call and you send them an email and say, hey, I'm really interested in doing research with you and postdoc position. Do you have funding available? Are you planning to hire a postdoc, in the near future? This is typically how people identify opportunities. These are other ways that you might be exposed to opportunities. I'll just go across the slide. Postdoc offices, major R1 institutions usually have a postdoc office. Some of them have job boards. My office does not, but we work very closely with biomedical postdoctoral programs at Penn. They have a job board. You can definitely check that out. PIs and lab websites will often post that they're hiring postdocs. Professional associations is a great place to look to be discipline specific. Then there's centralized postdoc fellowships, as I mentioned, kind of like in the humanities. Mellon Foundation, Pew Charitable Trust, both of them fund postdocs. Hospital systems, and if you're in the biomedical arena, they often have postdocs that are doing research or clinical research. And then national labs is a great place to search if you're in the natural sciences as well.
Real quick, we have a question. Is that for STEM specifically, or do social science professors hire postdocs? To which the answer is yes, but I'm hoping you can give an example.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
It says, is that for STEM specifically, or do social science professors also hire postdocs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends a little, like social science is pretty broad, right? But like I would say, in general, like any discipline, you could always reach out. And if you can identify that the faculty member has like grants or funding, definitely reach out to them because they might have the funding for a postdoc, and that includes the social sciences. Annenberg is a great example, right? Like that's the social sciences, and they have a lot of great postdoctoral opportunities here at Penn. So I'll just talk a little bit about how to conduct the search, right? I mean, tips for a strategic search. You want to start early before you defend your dissertation, 6 to 12 months. Sometimes PIs will not have the funding right at that moment, but they know they'll be getting a grant down the road. So like that's why reaching out to them to sort of get the understanding the details of like when and how the postdoc opportunity might be available is important. You want to, if you this is my number one tip. If you are interested in working with a faculty mentor or PI, try to talk to current and former postdocs in that lab or that have worked with that faculty mentor before. This is where you're really going to understand what the experience is like. And I would recommend don't just talk to one, right? Because you're just going to get that one perspective. Try to talk to like 2 or 3 postdocs. It really helps because the most important thing is that you find the right fit. And the right fit is really reliant on the PI or the faculty mentor that you're going to be working with. Look for environments that grow your skills. Every R1 institution, Ivy League institution, state schools, lots of places are going to have different resources to support you, different cultures that may or may not be a good fit for you. So it's just like kind of understanding like the landscape, I think is really important just to make sure that you'll feel comfortable there and feel supported to get your research done. And then, I mean, this is don't just chase prestige, find the right fit. Sometimes people get lured in by these like superstar faculty who have a ton of grants and publications. That doesn't necessarily mean they're the best mentor. And your grad students, maybe you already know this, but it's really important to do your due diligence and make sure that like if you're going to do a postdoc, you're really going to get the most out of it. So other key factors to assess, here are the main areas to evaluate: mentorship, as I've mentioned, autonomy, how much autonomy you're going to get, What is the funding situation and research fit? Is it really the right, it's not too much of a stretch, right? Like this is really going to be the right fit for you to progress in your skills and your knowledge and your ability to produce. So mentorship, how do you evaluate that? You want to meet with that person. If they say, yeah, your CV looks great, we would be interested in hiring you as a postdoc, have a talk with them, ask these kind of questions, right? If you can establish transparency and open dialogue at the interview stage, this is a great sign. But if the PI struggles to give you answers to these questions, or you don't like the answers you receive, this could be a sign that their mentorship and training would not be a good fit. Right? Because some PIs have a ton of funding, they're super busy. Maybe they'll only meet with you once or twice a year. That might not be the autonomy you need, right? Maybe it's more like, how often are we going to talk? How often am I going to get feedback from you? So I'll just talk a little bit about this. We have lots of postdocs who were here as grad students. We have some postdocs who were even undergrads. We love to keep you, but it's important for you to evaluate opportunities outside of your home institution, right? So there are advantages to doing a postdoc at your PhD institution. You don't have to relocate. You know the players. You know how to navigate the resources and the administrative bureaucracy. It's easier to transition, but some of the drawbacks are significant, right? Like you're not going to get as much of a chance to expand your network, to be exposed to other modes of learning or ideas or even a culture. And it's really important, I think, as a postdoc to keep those things in mind because you're trying to set yourself up for the next position. And you need to do that in a variety of ways, not just be in the lab 24/7. So other factors to assess, I think, if you're starting to hone in on like a couple of particular opportunities, like make sure you keep these things in mind, right? So what will the salary be? What are the benefits? You can ask these questions of the PI, or you can say, who should I talk to? What website should I look at, right? We have the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs has a website where we lay out all the benefits of being a postdoc at Penn. BPP is a great resource as well. You should talk to your PI very openly about funding security to see if there's any questions or concerns about the funding and the duration of funding. Access and support, right? Will you be able to access career services like you can at Penn? Fantastic resource. And then there's other ancillary benefits. And these are things you can negotiate, right? Can they provide you research and travel funds? Will they cover your relocation costs? Not all these things are guaranteed, and you should always ask. And then, if you are interested in teaching, some institutions, it's more uh, acceptable for postdocs to carve out time for teaching. Will the PI support your professional development? And then, it's sometimes helpful to just kind of look at like how are these positions like governed? Looking at the postdoctoral policy might give you some insight into into what the experience is going to be like how much time do you get off or how do you handle being reappointed, and like what's the process for evaluation? So yeah, I think I'm going to turn it over to Diane, unless there's any urgent questions at this moment.
Thank you so much. There is one question which I can tackle, and then you can share your thoughts as well. Regarding when we should start reaching out to PIs in the biomedical sciences, the 6 to 12 month timeline makes sense to me, but I've also been advised to not reach out until I have a publication. What are your thoughts on this? So my thought would be if you're within 6 to 12 months of graduating, it is fair to start reaching out. But again, so many biomedical postdoc positions are found very informally, right? So networking. And so reaching out to a PI who seems to have some grant money, you think your skills might match what they're looking for, and you're reaching out on that behalf. But then you can sort of also engage in a conversation. Perhaps you're close to getting a publication. You could share that in your outreach email. And it's really also going to depend from discipline to discipline. And so checking with your faculty advisors, sort of get their thoughts I think would be important. Marta, do you have other thoughts on timeline?
No, I agree. Like, and talking about like I have this in progress. These are things, these, if you have a general sense of like when you'll meet those milestones, like you can share that information. And then yeah, pretty much what Diane said.
Yeah. Then we have a question about our, excuse me, are postdoc stipends ever negotiable? Does that depend on the institution?
I don't know if it depends on the institution. I think at most institutions, it's definitely negotiable, right? So because a fair majority of our postdocs are funded by the NIH, like they set sort of like requirements for salary, and we have to meet those requirements. But often postdocs will negotiate a higher salary than what is required by the NIH. So it's again, it's always worth asking. Just ask nicely.
Yeah, and we in career services work with students on these kinds of questions all the time. One of the things I've seen be most negotiable is relocation, because that's often not an initial offer. But if you're going to go work for an advisor who has some money and they would really like you to come and relocate there, they may be able to use some of their funding in some way to share in relocation. So it's always worth asking. Depending on the institution and depending on where the funding for your postdoc is coming from is going to depend on the success, I would say. Okay, great. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how you would actually go about applying for some of these and some of the documents that you might need and some examples of listings that might be interesting for you to take a look at. So what are the documents that you might need in order to go ahead and apply for a postdoc? So first and foremost, you're absolutely going to need a CV, right? And that's something that Career Services can help you with in terms of putting together a great CV that would be helpful as you look for postdocs, whether you are applying through a formal process for some of the programs we're going to talk about, or you're doing more informal outreach. Other things that you might want are a cover letter, perhaps a website for your lab, a website for your department, kind of outlining what it is your work has been focused on. Again, depending on your background and what discipline you're in, you might need a GitHub site if you're someone who's wanting to showcase any kind of programming skills. Google Scholar can be helpful to list a lot of detailed information about your publications, presentations. Again, depending on the type of postdoc that you're applying to, and I'm going to show some examples in a moment, you might need a statement of research. You might need a statement of teaching plans. There are postdocs that will be oriented toward research, toward teaching, and then references. It's a good idea to have a couple of references sort of lined up. I don't think it's as helpful to ask them to write a letter yet, because you want to see sort of what the postdoc opportunity is looking for in terms of, do they want to reach out to the references on their own, or are they looking for a more formal letter? So you need to sort of evaluate that. But these are some of the documents that you might need as you're thinking about applying. So now I want to show you some of the places that you might find some of these opportunities. So this is an example at Berkeley where they are sharing with you some of the opportunities that they find, right? So there's Mellon postdocs at Wesleyan, Carolina postdoc program, Chancellor's postdoc. This is sort of a clearinghouse. A lot has changed, as we all know, in the last couple of months. And so, but Berkeley does a reasonable job of sort of keeping track of what's updated and what's not. So this is one place in which you might find a centralized location to look for some different postdoc programs. So now I want to show you some examples of what you might find that could be interesting. So let's use as an example Haverford College. Haverford College, if you're not familiar, is a very small selective liberal arts institution in the suburbs of Philadelphia. But surprisingly, they do have postdoc opportunities there that are focused a lot on teaching, right? So these 2-year Andrew Mellon postdoc in humanities, they are really focused on junior scholars and helping them to expand their teaching opportunities. And so postdocs are not just for people that are very research focused, but could be focused on other opportunities as well. So this is an opportunity, as you can see, the deadline was back in January. So if teaching is something that you're interested in, you might be thinking about looking toward this opportunity as we look to the winter in terms of the documents that you might need to apply for this type of an opportunity. Another opportunity is at Dartmouth, which is the Society of Fellows. Now, Dartmouth, as we know, is an Ivy League institution. It is, however, a lot more undergraduate focused than, say, Penn might be or other institutions. Dartmouth Society of Fellows is really research focused. So even though it is a very teaching heavy institution, this is an opportunity in which they are very focused on advancing the research of junior scholars. This is 3 years, and it's focused on doing good in the world, right? So talking a little bit about how your research might do good in the world. So this is another example of a different kind of postdoc program that you might find at a place like Dartmouth. Then we have other kinds of opportunities. So you may be familiar with St. Jude's Hospital for Children, which is in Tennessee, and it is focused primarily on cancer treatment for pediatric cancer treatment. They have a very extensive postdoc program. And so you'll see here, this is just an example of a research associate in postdoctoral research associate in pathology. They also have oncology. So these are opportunities in which you're going to work at a hospital that's not an academic institution, but that is conducting pretty intensive research. And so St. Jude's is one. They often come to a lot of our career fairs. So you will see opportunities there, that there'll be sort of a process that you go through applying as well. Then we talked a little bit about national labs, right? So this is an example of the Livermore National Lab. They have a very well-developed postdoc program. And what I wanted to show you was some of the benefits that you might get. So Marta talked a little bit about, evaluating opportunities and seeing like what is the, what might you be getting besides the actual research experience or perhaps teaching experience? What other sorts of things might they offer? And on this next slide, they show a little bit about what they have to offer. Great. So a poster symposium, brown bags and panel presentations, a research slam, social and networking events. Here at Penn, postdocs have access to career services. That is the case at many institutions, although I have found not all. And so, what kinds of other assistance might you be getting while you're a postdoc? And then Marta mentioned earlier, this being an example at Penn, because so many of our postdocs are in the biomedical sciences. BPP, which is a biomedical postdoc program, they do have a database of postdoc listings. This is not all encompassing. I am 100% sure that there are postdoc opportunities that do not make their way in here, or that really aren't sort of out there until someone reaches out and says that they're interested. But this is a great way that you can be searching for particular postdocs if you are interested in staying at Penn or finding other academic institutions who had similar kinds of listings. So how can career services help you in applying for these different things? Document review, all of these things, CV, cover letter, research and teaching statement if you need them. We help people with that all the time. Networking guidance, so finding a little bit about how you might find people, what might you say to them when you're going to reach out to them. And then mock interviews. There's a lot of postdoc hiring that goes on that's a little on the informal side, but there's a lot that requires an interview as well, even if it's a Zoom interview with a PI, and we do offer mock interviews, which I think could be really helpful. Here's some of the links that we have about our application materials. This is a great resource that we have in terms of getting some samples of a cover letter, CV, research statement, or teaching philosophy. And I want to share with you how you can make an appointment with us if you would like to chat with us more. Just on the next slide, I believe. Oh, sorry, I forgot about this. We do have many different kinds of career guides that are helpful. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about interviewing, a little bit more about networking from informational interviews, these guides can be helpful to you as well. And this is a great blog post. It's a few years old. A colleague shared it with me. It's really helpful on how you might go about identifying postdoc opportunities. So how are you going to identify opportunities? How are you going to make an outreach list? And it even gives you specific tools like a spreadsheet, prototype for how you can keep track, an email of what you might send to prospective faculty. So this is really helpful. Again, a few years ago, but the advice still stands. And then finally, how you can schedule a one-on-one advising appointment. For any current postdoc, we are happy to meet with you. You can log on to your Handshake account, which you all registered for today's program on Handshake, so you can request an appointment on Handshake as well. And then I just wanted to finally share information with all of you about how you could take a look at our upcoming programs. So we're wrapping up our programming today, but we will be back again on Monday. And on Monday, we're focused a little bit more on careers outside of academia. So I highly recommend that you register for some of these programs. My colleague Allison Howard is dropping the link in the chat. So you'll see on Monday and Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we have a cohort for any of you who might be going on the academic job market this year. You can apply for the cohort. And if you would like to come in person and register to get some assistance on your writing, you're welcome to register for that. I believe there's a waiting list right now, but perhaps there will be additional opportunities as well. So I am happy to answer a few questions that I saw come in the chat now. And then we can wrap up. If we know our long-term goal is to end up in industry, is it worth pursuing a postdoc? Are faculty looking for postdoc candidates that are not interested in tenure track positions? That's a good question. I can't say 100% what faculty would be thinking. I think most faculty probably do take on postdocs with the assumption that they are going to go into the faculty job track, but that doesn't mean that that's what everyone ends up doing. And there certainly would be some faculty who would be okay with that. I would say it depends on what industry you're in. For the most part, a postdoc is only going to help your candidacy in any kind of future role. So for instance, if a postdoc can be a great way to get exposure to something that maybe you didn't get exposure to during your PhD years, to gain some new skills. If you are looking to relocate to a new area, a postdoc in the new area can be helpful as well. So I don't think a postdoc is a downside to any PhD. And in some cases, depending on what you end up doing during the postdoc, it could end up being very helpful to you as you think a little bit about other types of opportunities. Then we got a question, if you plan on cold emailing a potential PI to ask about a postdoc, should you send an initial email just asking if they're accepting postdocs before following up with your CV and more information, or should the initial email be more formal and contain your CV? I think an email alone is probably not going to provide the context that that PI or that faculty member is going to have in order to evaluate whether you might be a good fit. So I would recommend doing a little bit of homework ahead of time to see a little bit about what is it they're working on, where might you fit, right? Because not only do they want maybe a postdoc, but they want a postdoc who's going to make their life easier, right? Who's going to help them in some way move forward in something that they've been working on for a while. And so doing a little bit of research ahead of time to sort of suggest where you might be helpful is always helpful. But absolutely, I would attach your CV because the CV provides more context. The other thing is it is very possible that you could send a cold email to a PI and they might be like, wow, this is interesting, but I don't have funding or I don't need someone right now, but I have a friend down the hall who does, and maybe they'll forward that CV for you. And it could go other places. And you could even mention that in your message, that you'd be welcome for them to share your CV around. So I do think it's helpful to share that initially. For the faculty job search cohort, does one need to be Philadelphia based or one can be involved virtually? Allison answered this question. It is an in-person opportunity. So you would need to be based in Philly for the job search cohort. So I believe we are out of time. This has been an excellent program. You guys have had some really good questions. We would love to see you at some of the programs next week. And often people ask about recordings. This program is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel in the coming weeks.